Oi, you. It's time for another episode of Dorothy and the Dealer. Let's tune into the conversation.
Now, one of the things that does happen is we do start our podcast with our favourite song.
What's your favourite
What's your
song?
favourite song?
I like Hotel California.
Really?
Can you hum us or sing us a little bit about it?
No.
Oh, come on.
I said to her, there's no way Johnny Martini is going to sing. You've been in the industry for a long time, John. Yeah, you've been. I mean, when did your career in this field, lecturing, kick off?
I started speaking and tutoring and giving classes in that area in philosophy and things in 1973.
In '73.
Yeah, I was
45 years.
Right. So that's when Bucky would have been around.
Yeah.
You had Warner Earhart coming through. You had all of these because it was really emerging at that point.
Yep.
Wasn't it?
Well, I think there's been somebody in the personal development field for a long time.
Yeah.
Because we can go back.
Well, we can go
Of
back to
course.
Lao Tzu. We can go
back all the way through. But,
Yeah.
but the personal development field really kind of took off around the 60s, I think.
Yeah.
I left home at 13. I was soon to be 14 in about 2 months.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting story. I was playing pool with my dad in a barn. He had a pool table in this barn, and which we once lived in while we were building the house. And then we moved into the house, and the barn was still an entertainment kind of center. We're playing, and it's about 4 o'clock. And I finally beat my dad in one of the games. And I said, Dad, I need to go in and get cleaned up. I'm going into town tonight. And we lived 13 miles from a city. From a town of 9,000 people. And my dad said, well, you know, son, you've been out every day this week. You need to stay home tonight. And I said, Dad, I've really got some important things I want to do. I'm meeting some people, and I'm going to go out. He said, son, no, you really have been out, and you need to stay home tonight. And I didn't want to tell him, but a buddy of mine, his parents were leaving.
right.
And his house was available. And there was 2 chicks meeting us at that house. And I didn't want to tell my dad that I'm meeting this chick
Sure.
at this house with no parents there. I was trying to dodge that. And he said, you need to stay home. And I said, well, no, I'm going out. And he took the pool stick and he hit me on the hand with his pool stick. He said, you're staying home tonight. And he got really firm about it. And I took the pool stick and I said, no, I'm not. And he said, well, if you go out tonight, you don't come back.
Whoa.
And he said that, and he was shocked by him saying that.
Yeah.
I don't think
He
my
knew
dad
what
was
to
a
say.
really pretty cool guy,
Yeah.
very loving guy. He just wanted me to stay home that night. In fact, I have a feeling he had a special thing that he wanted to do that night for me.
Right.
But he didn't want to blow it, and I didn't want to blow it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but neither were on the same page then. So I told him, well, if that's the way it is, then fine. Okay, then I'll go out. So I was relatively independent by 13.
Mm-hmm.
I was 180 pounds. I was 5'10" already.
Mm-hmm.
I was hanging out with older kids, 17, 18 and then older. So I was sort of ready for reality out there. So when I got cleaned up and got all ready, I packed a bag, I got some clothes, and I was walking out. And my mom is like looking at Dad and going, and he's just watching TV. He was not even looking because he didn't think I was really going to do it. And I walked out, and down the road I went. I started walking into town, 13 miles, and with a suitcase of some clothes and stuff. And my mom has said, you sure you want to go, son? And she's trying to mediate this thing.
Yeah.
And he says, no, if he's a big boy, he can take care of himself now. I've prepared him. I've trained him. I taught him how to be an entrepreneur. I told him how to survive. If he thinks he's a big boy, then he's a big boy.
Wow.
And off I went, and I had that evening, and I hung out with some friends, and I started being a street kid,
Right.
and I actually enjoyed part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I slept on some really interesting places. I slept in bowling alleys. I slept in parks. I slept with friends. I did all kind of stuff, but I learned how to survive,
Yeah.
and I became more entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And at 14 I hitchhiked to California, and 15 I made it to Hawaii, and I became an adventurer. And if I hadn't had that moment, I don't know what would have happened. That was a very significant turning point also that evening.
And I think that to think of what it takes of a father to do that, to have to hold this place, to eventually, obviously watch his son evolve.
There's no doubt in my mind he cared and he loved me.
Yeah.
I had loving parents.
Yeah.
But I think that was the last day he ever put a rule on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never again.
Yeah.
There was never any rules on me from that point on. I was an independent child from age 13 on.
Wow.
I didn't read until I was really 18. I was learning problems. And so my parents wanted to encourage me to go back and try to go back to school and learn. And so they got me self-development books.
Really? Is that
My parents did.
Really?
My mom's side particularly. My dad studied philosophy. My mom was sort of into personal development and mystical things.
Yeah.
And so she got me psychocybernetics. She
Right.
got me The Phenomenon of Man
Right.
by Chardin.
Yeah.
She got me almost all the self-development books, Robert Schuller's series, Norman Vincent Peale's series, Zig Ziglar, all those self-help books. And I learned them, I read them, but I felt, no matter what I did, I felt somewhat hypocrisy for me. I felt I couldn't sustain this monopolar perspective that many of the books were promoting.
Right.
Yeah.
I couldn't sustain it, and it was frustrating because I thought, well, I need to read another book. I need to meet these people. I need to find out why am I falling short of this ideal.
Yeah.
And
Of the singularity, is
this
that what you mean by the
singularity of focus.
monopolar? Yeah.
You're supposed to be up, never down, positive, never
positive,
negative,
yeah.
kind, never cruel,
Yeah.
peace, never war,
Yeah.
all this. And I found that no matter how hard I tried to do that, I kept falling on that.
Right.
And I pursued that. But then I had the opportunity to meet all these speakers.
Right. So you like Zig, Robert.
I met Zig Ziglar, I met Norman Vincent Peale, Earl Nightingale and his brother,
Wow.
Tremendous Jones, W. Clement Stone. I met the people in that industry, Brian Tracy in the early days, Jim Rohn.
Yeah. Who's amazing. Brian's amazing. Jim's amazing.
Yeah, they're amazing people. Brian's still a very close friend of mine all these years. But I noticed that one by one, every one of these people that I'd met, I found the other side.
Yes.
Right.
And I found out at getting to know them, they were just human beings like myself. And that softened the expectation that I had on myself to try to be a one-sided person.
Did it take for you to go and see them before
That
you got
helped.
to that point?
That it wasn't until I turned 28. So for literally 10 years, I attempted to be pursuing this monopolized perspective of one-sidedness. And then I decided that, I've had enough hypocrisy. I felt like I was falling short no matter what I did. And after meeting all these people slowly but surely and finding out that they had both sides, one of my heroes that I thought was the most upbeat kind of guy came into my room at 10:30 at night one time, knocked on the door and said, my wife just found out she had cancer, and he was just bawling and crying. And the next day he was up on stage and everything was all positive, and I was thinking, this is inconsistent here. So I did an experiment. You may know the experiment,
Right.
where I literally got 300 of the best-selling books in positive genre, the books I mentioned and more.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I did is I went through and I circled every positive word in these books. I literally page by page circled every positive word, extracted those and transferred them onto an index card. On the top left corner of the index card, I took the most positive words. And after I accumulated every word that I could get that were positive out of these 300 books, so I had accumulated 300 books already, and took the most positive words. After a while, you're going through page by page, and there's no new words.
Yeah.
But initially, there's a lot of words. And I put them in alphabetical order in these boxes. I used to have a 100-pack these 3x5 cards.
Yeah, like system cards.
Yeah. So I filled up 2 complete boxes, 2,000 of the most positive words in the English language, alphabetical. I shuffled them. And then I sat and I meditated on each word. And I contemplated on the most positive statement, affirmation, or quotation I could think of that would include that word in it, that would be upbeat, inspiring, etc. And I literally composed 2,000 quotations, 2,000 affirmations, if you will. And I organized them alphabetically. I divided it into 365 days. That led to 5 to 6 quotes per day. And I wrote a book called 2,000 Quotes to the Wise, a day-by-day guide to inspirational living, which if you go online, you can still see it's out there, it sells.
Yeah, yeah.
I stopped selling it many years earlier, but it's still out there. People still have it. And what I did is I wanted to know if I was to concentrate on these 5 to 6 quotes per day, every day, what would happen in my physiology and psychology. So I created a form. I call it a day-by-day cycle forecasting form. And I put down vertically spiritual, mental, career, financial, family, social, and physical, the 7 areas of life that you could categorize life into. And then across I put 31 days, alphabet, by the days of the month. And then each day I put 7, 11, 3, and 7. So I had little bitty lines. And then in each quadrant, each spiritual, mental, career, I put +3 to +2, +1, 0, -1, -2, -3. So I could actually, on a 4-hour basis, monitor how I was feeling in each of the 7 areas of life. And so what I did is I had this form created, a day-by-day cycle forecasting form. And I had this little beeper in my pocket. And I get up at 6:45 and start the affirmations. I'd memorize the 5 to 6 quotations for the day, set up those as affirmations for the day. I kind of put them in like a bead, because in Eastern mysticism you had, japa beads, and the Western mysticism you had rosary beads. I thought I would do some beads and chant these most positive words, most positive affirmations that I could think of every single day, 108 times a day. So 5 to 6 times 108 would be around 600 affirmations. The truth is I did like 1,000 at least. And I did this throughout the day, all day long. And I literally just went through and affirming these positive statements, because I was told that if you fill your day with high priority, positive statements, that you have a higher probability of having that positive life. So I did this, and every 4 hours a beeper would go off in my pocket. And the beeper would then let me know to now monitor how I was feeling in each of the 7 areas of life. So I would put +3 or -2 or -1 or 0 or whatever, and it would take 10 seconds to fill in 7 little circular numbers every 4 hours. So the beeper would go off every 4 hours, and I would fill in, and I would ask myself, honestly, where do I feel right now? Do I feel inspired or despired? Do I feel sharp or dull mentally? Do I feel successful or failure? Do I feel, prosperous or lacking? Do I feel, close and intimate or distant from my relationship? Do I feel outgoing and extroverted or introverted? And do I feel vital or do I feel yucky? I monitor these. And I did this 4 times a day for every day for 2 years. And most people thought I was neurotic. But I wanted to know once and for all what impact. I wanted to be as objective as I could to see what impact I would get from being the most positive statements I could.
Right.
I noticed 2 things. I noticed that in the areas of what I valued most, which is intellectual pursuits, spirituality, business, I had the least volatile movements in the fluctuations. But in the family and social and health area, I had the highest volatilities, particularly family. And my values were being revealed there.
Right.
At the end of 2 years, I got a calculator out. It was a Tuesday. I remember this Tuesday. I got a calculator out, and I went through every one of those lines. There were 24 sheets that I had completed. And I filled in these things all the way through for these 24 sheets. And I got a calculator, and I calculated all the numbers. And when I got at the end, they were 0.
0.
Wow.
Or 0.001 or 3 or something. When I did that, even though I intuitively sensed that was coming, because I was extremely volatile, I had the highest bipolar symptoms during that period than I ever had. Because I believe the bipolar is a byproduct of monopolar thinking, one trying to be one-sided.
Yeah.
It splits you apart. When I got those and I saw the result, there was a real letdown, because I had spent now 12 years of my life, 2 years intensely trying to be a positive thinker, finding out that no matter how hard I tried, I still had both.
Yeah.
And that shifted my perspective. And I started pursuing and wondering, what is it? Why is it that that's not real? Why are we promoting something that nobody's living and I couldn't live? I can't promote it anymore.
Yep.
So I had to realize that we're balanced individuals. We have feedback systems, homeostatic systems to guide us back to the center. And that we're not here to be up all the time or down all the time. We're here as feedback mechanisms to be ourselves.
Right.
And so that was a turning point in my whole teaching career, because I realized that I couldn't promote something that was common out there anymore, and that somebody had never taken the time to look through. They were just parroting what they were taught and never actually questioning it, as many people do. We have layers in the brain, and the most advanced neocortical forebrain is involved in objective reason and balanced thinking and more rationale, and embraces both sides of our life. Where down in the more allocortex, the more primitive part of the brain, you have more of an avoidance of pain and seeking of pleasure, avoidance of predator, seeking of prey, avoidance of the negative, seeking of the positive. So the more advanced in awareness you are, the more balanced orientation you'll ground yourself. But the more the neophyte in the journey of self-development, the more likely you'll be vulnerable to avoid pain, seek pleasure.
Right.
And so in religious, perennial wisdom of the religious teachings, philosophies, mysticisms, and things of this nature, you've had an entire scale. For the masses, you've always had something that's avoid pain, seek pleasure, and the masses would run for the immediate gratification, the dopamine fix, the opium of the masses. But as you would move your way up the ladder of awareness, you'd eventually come to a deeper reason and realize that there's a calling to the center and an embracing of both sides of yourself, instead of trying to get rid of half of yourself or getting rid of half of life, or trying to blame things on the outside and give credit to the outside, which very commonly at the more lower levels, you're looking for a guru to save you and you're trying to get rid of demons kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where at the highest level, you realize you are the guru and the demon.
Yeah.
You're both.
Exactly.
You're the hero villain.
Exactly.
So through the centuries, there's always been people, Montaigne and many others, a French philosopher understood this. You can go through and see that there's been reference to this understanding. But people in their early phases of their personal development, like myself, and probably yourself even, we started out looking for immediate gratification like a child.
Yes.
It was Kohlberg, the psychologist, who said there were stages of moral development. And the bottom level, the first stage, is avoid pain, seek pleasure, avoid punishment, seek reward, avoid evil, seek good, avoid predator, seek prey. The next is the pre-conventional phase, where you listen to mother, father, preacher, teachers, and their moralities. And then you eventually go to the conventional stage, where you fit into society and you subordinate to collective authority. And then once you do collective authority, you go to post-conventional transcendence, where you realize that none of that was real. And you finally realize that you're the one setting the rules because you've empowered yourself. And whoever has the rules or the values just happens to be the one who has the most power in the world.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
And so then there's something that transcends that, which is the universal laws.
Yeah.
And those laws are not attached. They're in symmetry. They're in conservation.
Yes.
They're in the physics of a mathematical equanimity. And so those transcend all the human limited understandings. So in Kohlberg's idea of moral development, you literally move, as I just said, from this avoid pain, seek pleasure model and avoid pain, negative and seek positive model, to eventually embracing life in its fullness. How are you going to have fulfillment, the pleroma, if you're trying to get rid of half of your life?
Exactly.
Are we at the dawning of something great? I mean, we saw where the PD industry was. There was times when it was poo-pooed, it was slammed, and then now it seems to be like a very, very vast growing industry. And the consciousness movement seems to be very big, without getting too airy-fairy. But where do you feel it's going? From where it's come from, where do you feel it's going? What do you feel is next? What do you feel is happening? It's a big question.
Well, I like to think of it as a spiral, and I like to think of it as always at a turning point. And each of us become cognizant of a different aspect of it at any one time. So I don't know that, without a doubt, technology is tending to expedite the process. That's what technology is for. Techna means that which helps teleology, purpose.
Right.
So technology was designed to help fulfill purpose.
Right.
So as technology advances, and we're going into supercomputers and quantum computers, and we're going through faster and more efficient, and et cetera, the responsibility and accountability of each person is going to be more accessible. You used to be able to hide your persona. Now, the priest used to be able to hide their persona and look like saints. Now they realize they're saints and sinners. And the president used to be able to hide behind the facade, but now everything's exposed. So today with technology, nobody can hide one side. So the advancement of that is basically having to force us to face the truth of our real nature. And so,
which is what, John?
Which is that we're really made of love, and love is made of the synthesis and synchronicity of all complementary opposites. So there's and most people think of love as in romantic terms, in infatuation terms, but it's actually a balance of opposites.
Of everything.
You like somebody and dislike somebody. You hug and you slug. You need both sides to make love. So I think that what it's doing is it's forcing us to become gradually, through technology, aware of the intelligence that's expressed as love, that's permeating all scales of existence, and is making us aware of it.
You know, the discoveries that they're making now, where, you know, it's just obliterating our whole concept of, you know, time and how long we've been here and what we are. So I think my question is, how did we get here? How do you think we got here?
We got 3 hours.
That's a good one. I wrote a 2-volume, 1,000-page text on the origin of life called Mysteries of the Living Cell, asking that question. And I teach that every so often. It's a program, but it's a 2-volume text. I'm not sure that I can abide by the idea that we were seeded. I can't say that with certainty. I've certainly looked at the models of that. I've certainly looked at the evidence sitting on ruins that would give that indication. But I can also explain that same information through another model. So I can't. I'm open to the possibility, but right now I'm not satisfied. The reason being that typically when an advanced civilization comes to meet a more primitive civilization, it's not necessarily it doesn't come out so well. Usually the previous civilizations that get wiped out or taken over or slaved or pushed around, like almost indigenous people around the world have experienced. So if we were to meet a very high civilization and they were to seed this, or they were to be here at one time, there's slight indications that might remind us of that. I can't prove that, but if that was to here and we were here in a primitive form, then we would possibly had some repercussions from that. They would have probably dominated and controlled instead of just came and left and did an experiment. That sounds kind of neat, but I can't confirm that. I can't say that's what happened. So I just kind of put it all in the mix, and I keep updating my research along the mix and put them in there as saying this camp believes this camp believes this, here's the evidence. And as the evidence accumulates, I just update the text. The possibility of another advanced civilization being there is extremely high. I believe that's there. I don't believe we've contacted or they've contacted us in our time, as many have tried to claim. Every time I get somebody that claims that, I tell them I'll give you $1 million cash if you can bring me to them, and so far they haven't done it. But because that would be worth more than $1 million. But the possibility of that is very high. The probability of that mathematically is pretty good. But I do believe that we're probably going to run into them about the time we become that advanced. So when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I have a feeling we're going to, when we are able, in 1,000 years from now, the probability of us traveling through space to other solar systems and colonizing and inhabiting that is very probable. When I was in 1988, I attempted to go. I went to NASA with Nick Nicodemus, who is with Lockheed, and we attempted to get me involved in a special missions project, to be a special missions astronaut to go and study biology in space. I was with Dr. Cox at the University of Houston, and we were studying how life might have been originated back in the 70s, 74, 75, 76. And I was very fascinated by the possible origin of life. That was what I wanted to do, research on it. And at the time, I got rejected at NASA because I couldn't follow authority.
John, you're not allowed to smoke pot in here. Get out.
Well, I wasn't smoking pot then. I stopped that in '72. But what I was doing is that I was not able to. I trusted my own self more so than authority.
Right.
And that lost a multi-billion-dollar spacecraft in a simulator format. But at the time,
Hold on. You were in a simulator.
I was
and
in
you
a
were listening to
simulator,
yourself, and you
I was
crashed.
trying to get out, put on my spacesuit, go out on the outside of it, and repair something, and go in and follow their instructions in doing this, and I just couldn't do it, and I lost the spacecraft. So I was not good. That was the end of my pursuit of that. I realized
who can say they lost a spacecraft?
Yeah, I had to go in to go into private enterprise, which I involved in Spaceship One.
Right.
So I got involved in that, the Ansari Prize. But one of the things that they were doing at the time, in 1988, at NASA, is they were pursuing Mars and colonizing Mars, and they had a 200-year plan in 1988. 200-year plan,
Wow.
and they're already years into it. So it started in the 70s. We're actually right at the junction, 70s and 80s, and so it was a real pursuit that they were working on. And every day, insights, technological advancements, and things were being monitored and going across like a tickler across a command center. So you could literally see the newest information that was expediting this project to try to get there.
Wow.
Now when Virgin Galactic came along and the Ansari Prize came along and Peter came along and now Elon Musk and these guys, the private enterprise is escalating that and making it cheaper, more cost-effective, etc.
Well, Elon has claimed he's going to be there in 10 years.
Yeah,
That's a big claim.
that's a big claim. Maybe 25, but
Yeah.
but even if he does it in 10 years,
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing. But we're going to go into space. We're going to have to deal with radiation. We just saw the impact. We just saw the genetic impact of being up in space for a year. We need to now find out, does the repair enzymes bring that DNA back, or is it permanently affected by it? Mm-hmm. We have to overcome the radiation components, the gravitation components, and reproduction components, traveling long distance, and the colonization components, the socialization components. There's many obstacles of travel. So you'd have to be very advanced and very organized and very communicative to be able to travel long distance as a colony. But this is inevitable that we're going to accomplish these things.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just a matter of time. But 1,000 years from now, being on Mars and colonizing Mars and colonizing other planets and moons, I think are real. And everyone has a master inside them, but not all of them are awakening.
What awakens it? What awakens the heart of a master? How do you awaken that?
What I do, and I'm sure you're involved in too, you're helping people see the two sides of an event. And the more the brain sees two sides of an event, the more transcendental it awakens.